Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting to order and declare the meeting open, and thank you for your attendance. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until all clear has been given, the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any persons present with a disability to vacate the building. Apologies for absence.
Yes, I have an apology from Councillor Evans, away on business, and Councillor Duffy for lateness.
A mover.
I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
By Councillor Whitten, second by Councillor Greenhalgh. All those in favour? Against? Carried. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at this council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during this course of this meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past, present of the Wiradjuri nation, and that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare a conflict of interest in any matter at this council meeting? Opening prayer. We'll welcome Bernadette Collins of the Shalom House of Prayer and ask that she lead us in the opening prayer.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, we ask tonight for your guidance, wisdom and support as we begin this meeting. Lighten our egos and help us to engage in meaningful discussion. May we honour one another by keeping an open mind and work together for the benefit of all. Amen.
Thank you, Bernadette. The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum, and we have one speaker, Richard Hattersley, on item 4.2, notice of motion, Lord's Place independent review. Just up here. Have 5 minutes. I'll just introduce the councillors first, Richard. We've got Councillor Whitten, Councillor Greenhalgh, Councillor McDonald, Deputy Mayor Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard, Councillor Peterson, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Miletto.
Thank you. Well, I brought some notes because I didn't want to do a Joe Biden and forget the lines. But anyway, my name is Richard Hattersley, as the Mayor has introduced me, and I wish to speak in full support of Councillor Kinghorn's notice of motion. Being a councillor is a privilege, and as I'm sure you're all aware, you expect to represent the views of the whole community, including the silent majority. It is essential that council has a clear, robust and structured community engagement process in place. However, it is not apparent that this was the case with Lord's Place South. Councillor Kinghorn is to be commended for moving the motion, and it is hoped that every councillor supports it. Failure to do so will only raise more questions in many ratepayers' minds. Councillors and senior council management need to understand what mistakes were made and what we can do to reduce the risk of them happening again in the future. The review needs to be conducted as soon as practicable, with the results of the review made available to the public. And I would finish by just reminding everyone that the importance of getting that review completed and out in the public's hands is we do have a council election in September. So time is of the essence. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. The council meeting will now resume. Mayoral minutes of the mining related councils meeting. Thank you, Councillor Miletto. Seconded by Councillor Whitten. All those in favour? Against? Carried. On to item 3.1, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of February. I have a moved by Councillor Floyd, Seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I'll put the...
Sorry, I jumped ahead. Sorry.
There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to notices of motion 4.1. Supply of live vac devices in all New South Wales schools. Could I move by Councillor Greenhalgh? Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Power. You can speak to the motion.
Perfect. So thank you, everyone. This is an important motion. And as I've stated previously, a lot of you will probably think that it's not a local government issue. I think it's very important as a community that we lobby for change. And I would just like to acknowledge Declan's family who are sitting over here. As a bereaved parent myself, if there's anything that any of us can do to prevent the loss of another child, whether that be lobby the government or lobby the schools, I think it's really important that we do everything we can as technology changes to ensure the safety of all children. Possibly we should take this a bit further, and a lot of the people that do choke also are in nursing homes. So there's a lot of scope on this motion, but I would ask you all to consider voting in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too support the motion put forward by Councillor Greenhalgh. Goes towards education, and I mean not just about having these devices in schools, but educating the community that these devices are available. In our family, we actually carry one of these devices in all of our vehicles in the car. But I've never seen these devices before we got them, but I happen to have family who are from the medical fraternity. That was the only reason I got to be able to learn about them. So I think something like this is great for... I think everyone should have them. I know that everyone can't afford them, and I see in the report they're around $165, but they're reusable. So I think it's just a good motion, Councillor Greenhalgh, and I'll be supporting it 100%. Yeah.
Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to speak in favour of the motion. My family has purchased one, and I bought it here for any interested councillor who wants to have a look at it. They were inexpensive and, in my point of view, unlikely to make the situation worse. As a doctor with a fair bit of medical emergency experience, I want to say that there hasn't been a lot of research and trials into these devices. Admittedly, it's hard to do a randomised control trial about a parachute. You're probably not going to get many volunteers for the other group. The recognised first aid of the Heimlich manoeuvres and shabbing on the backs are important to do first, but at that point, then I think this is well worth a try. Happy to see them widespread, and I notice this motion is no cost to council, so I was happy to support it.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. I agree, this is a fantastic idea. I'm totally in support of it, and just as a bit of a background, I wanted to find out where the council, because we have the 3 long day care centres and the occasional care centre. So I was contacting staff to see whether we actually have them on hand, and they don't yet, but they are now investigating because of this. The only thing these, sorry, excuse me, the reason a lot of people are saying that they haven't heard of it, and apparently that's because there's no first aid training provider who has actually come out to publicly endorse these. As Councillor Peterson said, it's hard to do trials on them, but I think it's absolutely worth looking at, because anything we can do to keep these tragedies from happening is definitely worthwhile.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'd like to ask, and I thank Councillor Greenhalgh for the motion. I think it's a very good one, and I do support it in principle. However, I would like to ask it to consider an amendment to the motion, if you would. The amendment would be, I recommend this matter be deferred to allow RNCT Council to write to the Australian Medical Association and the College of Medical Physicians to seek further information on this matter. then run the issue by the New South Wales Health to ensure that the device is appropriate for the purpose that is it intended. Speak to that if...
Is there a seconder for that?
Happy to second the discussion.
Thanks, Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Certainly support number 3, and I support the other 2 in principle. Certainly agree that Orange City Council have a important role to play in the community. However, I also believe that our 2 local members do also, both at the federal and state level. And the reason I say that is because New South Wales schools are made up of approximately 65% government schools, 35% non-government schools. Therefore, the issue then becomes both federal and state. It should be the responsibility of the community as a whole. As several of the councillors have indicated, that the LifeVac devices are not commonly used or used by New South Wales Ambulance. And I did make some inquiries with Ambulance New South Wales myself today. Whilst Councillor Peterson indicated, choking techniques and the other one you referred to are the most common. However, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at other opportunities or options to enhance possibility of assisting people who are in trouble and so forth. Ambulance offers a number of different techniques, and ambulance officers aren't trained in these. That's what I was told. They're not trained in those. Training needs to be undertaken by specialist medical practitioners. That's my understanding. Is ambulance officers have to be approved in those training methods. So whilst I support the recommendation principles, I would like to number 3 to number 1 would recommend that this matter be deferred to allow Orange City Council the right to write to the Australian Medical Association and the College of Medical Physicians to seek further information on this matter that would enable it to be run past the Health Minister and or from the Deputy Premier, who would then write to the Australian Medical Association, an expert, an opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support Councillor Miletto on this occasion. But I also wonder whether either of them would like to consider the fact that when we have the information in front of us, that we take it to the New South Wales Local Government Conference and deliver it there. I mean, that's where the ministers and all those people are. Now, I'm pretty sure that you'll add that to it. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Mr. Mayor, look, I'm going to speak against the amendment for the simple fact is that motion, ministers are not going to go and legislate law without talking to the people that Councillor Miletto has just talked about. What we're doing is highlighting a letter to the Deputy Premier, who happens to be the Minister for Education. Incorrected. They're going to enact exactly those things that Councillor Miletto has just stated. All we're doing by putting the amendment is slowing the system down, giving these people excuses to go away and do stuff, right? We as councillors don't legislate law, we create policy. And by simply sending this letter directly to the person it's intended to, let them do all the legwork. That's what they're there for. That's what the minister's there for and their staffers. So I think, I appreciate Councillor Miletto's statements, and they're all true. What he said is fact. But I think we need to understand that we can simplify things by just sending a letter to the Minister for Education, say, look at this stuff, and let them enact all of those mechanisms that Councillor Miletto said.
Closing the debate. Yep.
To close the debate.
Sorry, Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to support this. We were discussing just before the meeting, I was commenting that I've done first aid and CPR training every single year since I was 21, and I've never seen one of these. It hasn't come up at all. So it was interesting to read this motion last week and look it up and realise that there's actually something else. So what Councillor Peterson has said is correct as well, that the standards are that you try certain things, which were used in the cases of the children that did choke, and they were unsuccessful. So if there's something else, and there might be other devices similar to this which are available, this is about increasing awareness, and I think that's only a good thing.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a point of that notice that Mrs. Landon and her two daughters or a family are in the room here. They had the tragedy at Canoundra some years ago. I just want to acknowledge that their presence is here, and it's a big effort for them to come across. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Greenhalgh.
Yeah, so I'm just going to close the debate, and I'm going to speak against the amendment. And the only reason I'm going to speak against it is choking can kill in less than 10 minutes. I understand that the emergency services and so forth need to be trained should it be approved. But a lot of the times they don't get to these incidents in 10 minutes. So if that was readily available for the staff who have been CPR trained and so forth, I think it can make a big difference. So that's the only reason, very similar to Councillor Witten's, that I just don't want this to be held up and we have another family that unfortunately their child doesn't come home, or their mother or father in a nursing home, you know, doesn't make it as well. So that's the only reason I'm speaking against the amendment.
Okay, councillors, I'll put the amendment first. All those in favour? Against? Amendment's lost. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 4.2, notice of motion, Lords Place South Independent Review. Councillor Kinghorn, would you like to move that?
I would.
I have a seconder.
I'm
Thanks.
happy to second it. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Floyd. Councillor Kinghorn.
Okay, so I'm not going to read it out because it's just as written. I don't bring many motions to council meetings, and I have no interest in politics or its associated point scoring, but I do care about governance, and I'm committed to ensure that we are open and honest about what we do and how we spend money which belongs to the people of Orange. We have a duty to make sure we don't waste it. The Lords Place project was sold to us and to the community as a trial, and our own press release had our mayor saying, the beauty of this government grant is that it is intentionally designed to trial changes. A reasonable person would assume that such a trial could be undone if it didn't work out. As it happened, the reversal has been only a partial dismantling of the project at significant cost. The grant stipulated that the project should support local businesses and boost the economic vitality of the area. I've lots of correspondence here from many of the affected businesses stating that there was no such support and some had to close their doors. Essentially, we got this wrong at great financial cost. What I want to do with this motion is to show the people of Orange that we understand this and want to learn lessons from the project so that we don't repeat the mistakes. When I spoke with the CEO about tabling this motion, he was very helpful, assuring me that it was doable and tossing up ideas about who would be suitable to conduct such a review. However, when I asked him about what we normally do if we have a project failure, he said, define failure, which is exactly my point. We should have a system to review and learn from any projects we undertake with the goal of continuous improvement. I hope my fellow councillors will support me in showing the community that we have the courage to acknowledge that we got this wrong and that we intend to understand how it happened and to learn any lessons needed to ensure we do not have a repeat of this debacle.
Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. Other councillors? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Yeah, I speak in support of the motion. I would love a culture that needs to be one of introspection and willingness to take lessons from suboptimal outcomes. Personally, my personal lesson as a councillor was not to take only at face value the community feedback or in the council papers. The specific community feedback relevant to this project is in the agenda 18th of October 2022 between pages 50 and 55, if anyone wants to look it up. In my opinion, in hindsight, I think that overestimated the community support for the project, and my personal lesson as a mere councillor is I need to probably broaden that engagement beyond what's written down. That's my personal lesson. I think as an organisation, if there's any lessons we can take to our systems, then we definitely should. We don't sort of rise to the level of our dreams. We tend to fall at the level of our systems. If we can make them better, then of course we should.
Councillor Witten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, fully support the motion. With project management, there is always a phase of lessons learned. Even if the project is successful, you still have a lessons learned. In any project methodology, they all support that type of function. The thing that I would say, as a councillor of a number of years, is that ultimately the buck stops with us, right? So no matter if you're a councillor or a director of a company, remunerated or non-remunerated, ultimately the decision made here in this table, I can say this, is our decision. Staff members of any type in any organisation will provide a business case, will provide the information for us to debate, ask questions, we do our own research. Always do your own research, because there's only so much information that can be put into a report. So as part of this investigation, councillors will be part of that investigation, because we make up the decision-making phase as well. So I'd just like to point that out and make it clear, because I'm fully supportive of this. It's about understanding the whole project phase, and the staff then, based on the decisions of this council, us at this table, will then enact work to be proceeded with, right? So there is an element of responsibility at this table. Well, when I say an element, probably 99.5%, because we are the ones who vote to direct the senior management to conduct whatever it is that that we're voting on. But in saying that, yes, were there elements of the project that could have been better communicated to councillors? There always is, always will be. That's why it's very, if I could give any advice to anybody, is all at any level of decision making, you've still got to do your own research. Hence the reason why, speaking to when we make a decision in this council, irrespective of whether it's Lord's Place or anything, we are going to impact on the residents of this city, either in a good way or in a bad way. Every time we vote on any motion, we are impacting somebody, either good or bad, right? So, we support the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support looking into what we could do better. I agree with Councillor Kinghorn in terms of we should be assessing particularly major projects, lessons learnt, which is in reference back to having a working group, but that's gone. My one concern with this is that I think we need to be very, very careful about, because there's a comment in here about this is not to apportion blame to any individual or team. Council staff have copped an awful lot of abuse, specifically about Lord's Place South, since it was done. And my concern is that this will sort of be that, but on steroids. So I guess it's just can we just make sure that we're aware of that, particularly when findings are made public, that we really don't blame or target any individual. We really make this about learning and improving our systems.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And look, I support the notice of motion, and I agree with what fellow councillor has said. However, I also believe any outcomes from any investigation should be made public, regardless of, and that's the only way you learn. I mean, there is no point hold a public office is to not accept. I'm not saying there's any councillor here has been at fault or any council staff person has, regardless of whether those findings are positive or negative. They still need to be brought out, and people need to know what went wrong. So it can't be. I don't believe, regardless of whether it's positive or negative, we still need to know if there was a problem, what's caused it, and what are we going to do in the future to rectify that it doesn't occur again. So thank you.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and not support the motion. Due to when I looked at the evidence in relation to this is all about the future city. This started in 2018, and then when I looked through the minutes in relation right back to when I first was elected on council, and to see the progression of information that was given out, the opportunity for the staff to go on behalf of council to consult with them. And I was part of that consult downstairs here when, and I'll name the date here, was on the 12th of September 2022. And when I sat down there, we seen the businesses come to the actual consultation. We heard what's there, and then the staff then put up a stop shop in Lord's Place. There was many aspects of it. Then a report was drafted back to us on a meeting in September 2022, the 6th of September 2022, that listed 71 pages of this aspect down here, so 71 pages of that the staff had gone out. Information, over 9 pages of consultation with the community. Consultation with the community. I commend the staff for going out and doing their job for us to make the hard decisions at this table, sir. That's their job. And then when we finally came around, we had a briefing prior to the meeting. When it came to the table here, in my mind, though, and only in my mind, you know, I feel that every aspect, every point was taken to give us councillors the best platform to make the decision in relation to what we did on that very time. Now, sir, I just want to ad-lib one more thing on that. We say we gave it a chance. I'm sorry, sir. I would have to disagree. I worked as a public servant and did many aspects of pilot programs. Those pilot programs lasted at least 3 years. So this thing down here lasted less than 6 months. Less than 6 months. Then it was dismantled. So how can we say we gave it a chance? So we didn't give it a chance. And that I yield back. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll hold this up so everyone can hear, if anyone listening. Everyone knows that I've been against Lord's Place, north and south from the word go. I don't believe that we should cramp up our city, a wonderful city that our ancestors gave us, beautiful wide streets. And in the north of Lord's Place, we had one accident only since it went in. It's at the foot crossing, where if you're travelling north, you cannot see people coming onto it. The review needs to be on north and south, not just the one. But you look at the things that Councillor Kinghorn has brought up, which I've spoken about in this chamber many a time, is that you're talking about the information that was given. I know that in the one downstairs, Mr. Eddie tried to make a few conversations with the thing that was going on, and he was shut down. Mr. Eddie was shut down. If he was here tonight, he'd probably tell you exactly what happened. But he was shut down on the night because he had concerns of what Councillor Whitten and Councillor Kinghorn spoke about with the business houses, because it's a business street, not a... The other thing she talks about is accurate information. Accurate information is a trial. So we've got a chainsaw going down there the next day, chopping down trees in a trial. Fair income? I hardly think so. But you also look at when you're talking about giving correct information out, you're talking with some discussions, they talk about Ophir car park. No DA in for Ophir car park. There was never any DA in for Ophir car park. There was no EIS done on Ophir car park or planning laws. Talk about constructions, those constructions were in the ground. They were covered in the ground. And that was one of the complaints that I had. Was it legal? It's in a floodway. And that's what I'm talking about with planning matters. Said before, the review. Really, what are we going to achieve? What are we going to achieve? I had an email come from a ratepayer who wrote to the Minister, Minister Herning, wrote to Minister Herning and had all the complaints that we've got here and said, his response was, go to the Office of Local Government or contact Mr Gary Waddell. Now, she's still looking for Gary Waddell. I don't know where he is, but I can't find him myself. But that's the information. He's obviously got his finger on the pulse, hasn't he, the Minister? He knows what's going on, doesn't he? He's really up to speed. But anyway, that's a debate for another day. But look, the whole Future Cities on this area has been an absolute failure. You go from the word start. You have the golden balls. You've got the flying bees, which have all voted to support. Nearly $200,000. You're nearly totaling nearly $2 million. $2 million. If any of you had a staff member who cost you $2 million, how long will you last as an employee? How long? Not very long. I know if somebody's in here do run business, but what do we hope to achieve? Come in here and we have to make informed decisions. We are the ones. We made the decision. You can't go and blame the staff. No use blaming the staff. Come September is when we will be judged. Let me tell you, the people will not forget the golden balls, the dancing bees and Lord's Place. They won't forget it.
Councillor Floyd.
It's going to be hard to follow that one, Councillor Duffy. Thanks for that. Yeah, look, I'm voting in favour of this tonight, Mr Mayor. When this first happened, I did go out. I canvassed the streets. I canvassed people and talked to them, and my own personal investigations, plus what I saw and what I read in presentations given to us, and from the response that I had received from the public, this was all fairly positive. So, of course, I made decisions going around that. I thought, yes, this has a potential to work. But, of course, now seeing that it didn't, we do need to find what went wrong and ask questions, and that's what I think this is all about. And more importantly, that we need to learn to grow and take on what we are being told from this, and grow as councillors, and that's what we need to take out of it. Personally, I'm happy to respect any of the findings that comes out of this independent review, and we just really have to look at the fact that we all need to take on board what's being said, learn from it, and grow. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support the motion, and I agree with the comments that have been made that I think, continuous improvement, evaluating how things have gone, learning lessons is important. So I appreciate Councillor Kinghorn bringing the motion in that spirit, while at the same time I respectfully agree with a lot of the comments of the Deputy Mayor next to me, in terms of I've been engaged with the process of the planning for CBD revitalisation, the consultation around that from the previous term of council through to the decisions we've been making. And I mean, I think we all have different perspectives on what went wrong, what worked, what didn't with this block, as well as with other things. Like for me, it's point 6 in Councillor Kinghorn's motion in particular that I'm interested in, because I think I've acknowledged, while I didn't support the move to reverse the work that we had done, that the implementation parts of it didn't work well and needed reworking. And so I'm happy to look at that. I agree with the Deputy Mayor. Again, I think the decision to reverse didn't give the opportunity to do that reworking to consider things. So I think those are parts of the process that if we're having a review, I'll be looking to have input on, because I already think street trees are starting to look great down there. They're going to be amazing in time, and I'm still confident that at some point there's going to be more street furniture going back in down there. It might be a decade away, but when those trees say a bit more probably on another item that's coming up, so I'll leave it at that. Yeah, that's why I'm happy to support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Greenhalgh.
Yeah, this has been very controversial. I was one of the councillors who actually voted for this after talking to some businesses who, again, like Councillor Floyd, it was all very positive, and I could envisage over time, you know, this being a great area for families where we could get out, and even in winter, like Canberra does, you know, we could get out and actually move around and have a great community. But that was not what happened and what happened with the feedback. But I strongly believe, after talking to some businesses in Lord's Place, that they too actually changed their mind. And I think it's okay for us to change our mind as long as we learn. So I'm happy to support the motion. The only thing I'm not happy about is the money that it's going to cost us. But I think we need to have the foresight to, at some point, draw a line in the sand and invest this 20K, whatever it may be, to make sure we don't repeat this in the future. And, you know, it isn't a blame game because we're all at fault. Every single one of us. You know, so we need to just make sure that we've learnt something from this.
Sorry for interrupting. There's just a lot of background noise coming through.
Could we be quiet in the chamber, please?
So thank you for being brave to put this forward. And, you know, it isn't a blame game. And I think it's just about us, you know, becoming better, all becoming better people for our community. So thank you.
Question, Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor, if I may. Would Councillor Kinghorn consider point 8, as in raising earlier? We haven't got
you can add them separately if you want to. I did in point 5 is where I talk about the business owners, about the consultation.
they're part of the review.
Well, yeah, so whether there was effective consultation or communication with the business owners during the development, and then about the meeting. So presumably if a review was done, they would speak with the business owners to confirm that.
Just wanted to make sure that was the intent of that.
It is, yep. Will I close?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So thank you, everyone. I take on board Councillor Power's concerns, and I understand that there was a lot of opportunity for consultation. What my concern is, was it effective? And I don't know that it was, and there are still lessons to be learned from that. You can have quantity and not quality. For Councillor Duffy, what do I want to achieve with this? What I'd like to achieve is an understanding of where we went wrong and to learn from it. I'd also like to have it as a standard thing to assess what we do and see if there's anything that we can do better the next time. And I just want to close by saying that everybody makes mistakes. There isn't a person who doesn't make mistakes, but it's only an idiot that doesn't learn from them.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. I'll move on to 5.1, Lord's Place Furniture. I have a mover. Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My question is, I know that there was a lady, and I spoke about it in this chamber before. The only thing that I'd like to see happen is probably some seats put up in Summer Street, because we're lacking seats. When elderly people are walking up Summer Street, they're running out of breath and looking for somewhere to sit down, and we don't only provide a few seats for that, and they're probably usually at the bus stop. The other one was, we had a lady come in here from Wantama and wanted one of the flower pots put up at Wantama to give them a bit of a talking point or something to reassure reassurance at their stage of life. So they're just my comments about what should happen.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. The EOI will go out. Mr. Acting CEO, EOI go out
Directly.
to everyone?
Yeah, open to the public. Is it open to the public? No. I stand corrected.
Could you
don't
answer
mind,
that, please,
thank you.
Director? Oh, it's over here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me? The expression of interest is directed to the business community, so not to the general community. It was basically as detailed in the report. We have had some businesses already contact us and some community groups, but we're suggesting the EI is for the business community, and also that we also look at other things within council that we might be able to use that furniture for as well. So those are the two audiences.
Thank you. Just stay here in case there's other questions. Councillor Powell.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, is there a closing date of the?
Yeah, so we usually put an expression of interest out for about 4 weeks, so we're suggesting that we'd have a 4-week period of time.
Councillor McDonald, you got a question?
Yeah, sorry, thank you. What is roughly the dollar value of all of that stuff?
I'd have to take that on notice, I'm sorry. I don't have it off the top of my head. Yeah.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to the Director, why only to certain particular groups? Normally when we put expressions of interest out where council is expending their money, we let everyone have a say. Because everyone, like Councillor, my colleague at the end here, is talking about people are suggesting where there would be a good location for these items, but we're only closing it to business groups and
to the business community, and then also if there was any needs within council to put it in council areas. I can answer that question. The reason it was targeted to the business community was because we've taken it from one part of the CBD and in front of businesses. There would also be requirements around public liability. So if you have one of these pieces of furniture or the flower pot, they are council, still in the ownership of council unless we relinquish that ownership. And if they are placed in a public place, therefore there would be public liability that we would need to consider. So if someone fell over a flower pot or tripped over a seat where it was placed, that would be the responsibility of the applicant who wanted to use that in a public space. So it's a public liability issue that we need to consider unless we gift it to another place.
My apologies, I have my back to you, Director. I apologise for that. It's just still new. Would we need to do DAs because they're potentially going on footpaths? And I know there's always been DAs required for signage and all sorts of things, or tables and chairs.
Yep.
Well, I'd actually get the Director of Planning around the DA. I've just been looking at the public liability issue around that.
Thank you. He's coming to answer.
Come answer a question.
I might need public liability having my back to the directors. Covered?
Just to confirm, the question was about would there be a DA to install furniture around the streets? We could do it under Section 68 of the Local Government Act. Relatively simple. It's a bit depends on what it is. If it's associated with footpath dining, that could change things and require a DA, as you put out there, Councillor Whitten. That's the way we do it with footpath dining, but in relation if it's a simple flower pot, I think I'd be doing it with the Local Government Act normal approvals, which nests under the Roads Act. So no to a DA for small ones.
Another question.
How would the business get coverage of their insurance if they don't own the footpath? Insurance companies, probably a question for the other director. But I don't see how they would get in coverage because they don't actually own the footpath. That's council's. Anyway, sorry for all the 20 questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Because it would be within their possession and in their business premises, that's where the public liability gets transferred. So, for example, when we had the furniture out in Lord's Place, the actual sort of deck, if it wasn't furnished, would be our public liability. But as soon as a business puts, their own tables or chairs, then the actual liability gets transferred to them if someone tripped over their table or chairs. So it's complex, but if we're saying we're going to give you all of this furniture in your possession to use in your business, then they would be responsible for damage or if a patron tripped over or hurt themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Directors.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And my question to the Director just revolves around transparency. And once these expression of interest have been received by Council, and it does come back to Council itself, how would we then choose a successful applicant? Because there may be a perception in the community, whether that's perceived or not, that there is a potential bias in favouring some businesses. If you have several businesses want the same object, how do we address that issue?
So as part of the expression of interest, we have a criteria for assessment, and we have a clear criteria around community benefit, public space, how will that actually enhance the public space? So that would be a set of criteria that we would assess the EOI, and then that would be put up in a paper to Council with the rating of those criteria for decision.
Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think don't overcomplicate it. If it's too complicated, people aren't going to apply. So try and keep it as simple as possible.
Thank you. There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 5.2, which is Future City. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Power, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Have speakers?
I've got a question.
Councillor Whitten. Is this a question or a point of clarification?
I don't do points of clarification. I'm a pretty factual person. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the acting CEO, what are the parameters? What makes, can we use this money for anything, or is it specifically budgeted for beautification purposes? I just couldn't see that in the report. We came up with a different idea rather than traditional art or something other than, what's recommended.
In line with the Future City ideals of making the CBD more walkable, more livable, and for people to stay longer in the CBD, provided it was fitted within those parameters or was a project out of the SJB Architects report that listed a couple of hundred programs, then that would be one way. Yeah.
And another question, if I may. So this is money that we set aside. It's not grant funding.
Yeah, this isn't grant funding.
That's money we set aside for that budget. Okay.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. Just a question. It says in there that you can't commit a future council to spending money, but some of these projects clearly say that it will go into the first quarter of 2024, 2025. So why are those ones there if you can't?
Because the current council will still be in for the first quarter of 24, 25. They've been included.
Well, it's not all of September, so
July, August, and part of September.
But we're in caretaker mode for a little while before.
From August, aren't we?
So for half of that first quarter, we'll still be in. So that's okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. I mean, given the community concern about future city expenditure projects, there is an advantage in delaying approval until the new council can then decide as a group what they want to do and then own that decision. I recognise, though, that if there's delays, then that delays to completion and probably increased costs. I've got 3 questions, and I might do an amendment depending on the answers to them. The first question was on Project 4. It's listed as costing nearly $250,000. It's the one that sort of stands out to me the most. What would be the impact of delaying that particular project's decision until October this year?
Only impact to the delivery timeframe, that's all. No.
Project 5 concerns many of the car parks. Is this for increased capacity, or is this of parking, or is this improving just the quality of what we already have? And the follow-up question, who makes the decision about asphalt versus chip seal for the car park at Parkview? There's quite a substantial amount of money in between the quoted costs.
Absolutely. So the idea was to put both options up for council's consideration, the chip seal or the asphalt, given the substantial difference in costs. These improvements are not to add any additional car parks, but to improve the quality of the existing car parks.
Thank you. And the only other question was, Project 8 is a substantial sum of money at $200,000. I just wanted to know the backstory. What are the concerns with the current CCTV infrastructure in the city? What are we trying to achieve with that upgrade? I'm imagining there must be some sort of background to why such a sum of money was thought that it might be necessary.
I'll ask the Director to respond to that. Thank you.
Speaking to Councillors Bax. Through you, Mr Chair, we have over 30 CCTV cameras in our street security network that functions fine. We have a close liaison with the police, certainly through our Community Safety Crime Prevention Committee. We do upgrade those cameras from time to time. So that would let us upgrade the cameras to current standards, which produce a higher resolution, particularly at night time, so they don't need as much light. So you get a much clearer definition of people's faces, for example. There is also technology around those cameras that would allow the identification of particular items that I probably don't want to go into an open council. But fundamentally, it's an improvement of the quality of the image and its resolution and its ability to function in all weather conditions. So, but were we not to do it, the current system's fine. It's like upgrading your iPhone, I suppose. It works fine, but the new one's better. So that's fundamentally what's behind it. Just gives us that capacity to do that.
Councillor Miletto. Sorry. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions too. The Councillor Peterson raised the festoon lighting project 4. Do we already have the lighting? Have we already purchased that, and that cost is just in the installation and hooking up? Is that?
We have a number of festoon lights that are there for maintenance purposes, so for replacement of blown bulbs and what have you. But
I mean, for that specific project, has council already purchased?
No.
Okay, so that $244,000 includes purchasing the lighting itself as well as the installation and the hookup. Okay.
Most of the cost is involved because we can't hook up to the building parapets like we have in the rest of the street.
Yep.
Most of the cost is to put in individual poles to suspend that lighting.
Will they be better quality than the ones that were initially put up in the main street?
Take that on notice.
Okay, cool.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wouldn't entertain any of these before the next council election except for item number 8, which is the high resolution CCTV because of the crime. I mean, we've on the previous one here with our Christmas decorations, and not nearly all of them were vandalised except the one that was down here. They've been busted and all those type of things there. Number 6 I wouldn't have anything to do with until the new council because it involves a Christmas tree. Well, Christmas trees after September. And I have how much interruption is going to occur with that? With the business houses? Have we spoke to the business houses what's going on? Have we had consultation with them and any of those type of things there? So I have concerns about it, especially when we got accounts which were chasing money. I still believe we're chasing money for the Planetarium Conservatorium. Still chasing money for the Southern Feeder Road. There are things about future cities with create business and all these type of things here that comes. This is just window dressing most of this, except for the CCTV. And I would like to point out there was a incident up at the Esso Park, I think it's Esso Park still, where there was a knife point in home invasion or something like that was happening up there. So we shouldn't only be concentrating on Robinson Park. I think you'll read about it in the paper in the next day or so because a number of people rang me about the situation that happened up in Esso Park. So, and I'd like it noted in the business point mode because if someone wants to come and speak to us, they have an article that they can speak to. But they're the only things that I would entertain.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I thank the staff for bringing the report and proposing what I think is a set of projects that it makes sense for us to be able to greenlight and get on with. We need to continue investing in work on the CBD, and I'm noting most of the money in this proposal is relating to improving the quality of the car parks. And as a user of a number of the car parks that are listed there, I would welcome the improvements. I can see they need it both for driving, but also because if you've got potholes and you've got other problems in car parks, you're creating trip hazards as well for people getting out of those car parks. So I think, yes, some of these. Another thing I noted, I appreciate the report showing some of the transformation that's actually happened, including the public art. And I know we disagree around this table about the role of public art and about particular projects. I'm a big believer that having good public cultural projects is important, and it actually helps give an individuality to the city. It helps give a vibrancy to the city that's useful both for residents and for visitors. But none of this money is on things like public art. It's on lighting, which is not just window dressing. It's, again, something that either affects safety or it affects amenity, and the quality of the work that's been done on the lighting, the trees being lit up Summer Street, all of those things, it's valued by the community and it's valued by visitors as well. So the wayfinding, I think, is another project that's really important, and particularly Project 3, the activating precincts for events. I think that's something where McNamara Lane, the photos show the great change that's happened there. I think it actually looks great. The street trees again are going great, but that lighting was installed over the car park and it hasn't had a chance. Obviously, the last few years have had challenges that have got in the way of it, but we haven't put that space to use for events as much as possible. So I think this is a really pragmatic choice of projects that I would have thought aren't too controversial. Fixing up car parks, improving safety, adding lighting to improve amenity. Thanks.
Just a point of order for process. I better speak into the microphone. My apologies. I've just said point of order for process. Recommendation. Each item has the mover recommended, because 1 is for noting, 2 is to note list of potential projects for 23-24 budget, to maintain projects for 1 to 8. Point 3 is to adjust the budget accordingly for the next stage. So pretty much separate motions, because if we choose one, if 1 is enacted, it disqualifies 2 and 3. Note the report.
I would.
Dead.
Move it, sorry. Live amendment that we deal with it in seriata.
My amendment is that we defer it till the next council meeting. Can we have more reports to sort out the issues of Councillor Whitten is talking?
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Miletto?
I'm happy to second that, but I'd like a point of clarification if I can.
Sure.
The issue which I think is vitally important, and it's a pretty hot topic at the moment, that revolves around asbestos in mulch. As we're hearing and seeing in the media, in Sydney in particular, there's been discovered a certain amount of asbestos in their mulch, and I'm just wondering what tests are being undertaken by council to sampling is occurring, so the community can have confidence that the product they're being used is safe for the purpose intended. A lot of this mulch that we're using is being spread out in parks. It's being spread out in the CBD, and whilst we believe and would like to think that it's safe, sometimes there are people who will dump asbestos-related matter out the tip, amongst other stuff. So I'm just wondering, how often is that mulch tested to ensure that it complies with the regulations?
So every stockpile is tested, but not necessarily for asbestos. So the EPA are playing catch up on this. We don't believe we have building waste within our green waste. So it gets, not only does it get chipped, but it also gets, so there's a number of processes there where it gets loaded into trucks and what have you, and then taken out to Eucarina. For for processing, and so we don't believe there's builder's waste within it, but we are now testing our end product for asbestos, and we're awaiting results on that. I'm happy to keep council informed on that matter.
Thank you.
Councillor Duff, you want to speak your amendment?
Thank you for the amendment, Mr. Chairman. Also, which I did mention when I mentioned I moved the deferral, is that there's a sizable amounts of money involved here. You're talking millions of dollars. So, you know, what's the hurry to spend it all? I mean, I can't see any reason for it. And it'll also give the ratepayers and the residents and the business houses a bit more time to have a look at it and sink it in. Because at the moment, the word future cities is not real popular around town. So, yeah, our faith in the ratepayers don't have much faith in this at the moment.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Whitten.
I'm happy to talk to the motion because the other motion is not a motion because it can't be. Is that right? Am I right? Motion.
I believe we already have a motion on the...
Okay. Technically it can't be because they all are ultra vires of one another.
But I believe we've dealt with postponement previously.
All right, I'll speak to the amendment then. Happy to defer it because I think we should delve into each one of these items in discussion to get a really good understanding on handle. I've never been for this chatter about, in any council I've been in, that we leave things for the next council because that we are the councillors until such time as the community of Orange choose that we are not in September. So this business of leaving decisions for the next council is irresponsible in my view, and I've always said that for 20 years. So Councillor Duffy, we'll deal with it of this term of council. That's okay. I'll support the deferral so we can get a better understanding of each project. Yeah.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the amendment first. All those in favour? Against? The amendment becomes the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. 5.3, recommendations and resolutions from policy committees. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Councillor Duffy.
Question on the and I just wondered, as companion animals take into account the animals that come into the pound and all the dogs barking and all these type of things there. And if not, can we have a report come to council at the next council meeting as to the situation of what the complaints are around the town as for companion animals or whatever the case may be? Because I believe everyone who has a dog is a companion, isn't he? So looking all right. I'd like it noted my question as well too, please.
Councillor, Mr. Hodges.
Multiple levels to that question.
Where's
companion animals does include dogs and cats, and we can take the rest on notice and report back with some stats. Most appropriate way.
Can I just note that there is a report on the pound customer request statistics about animals that come to the pound, complaints about barking, dog attacks that were in the papers for our last meeting that formed the minutes of this. Those statistics are reported in the Companion Animals Community Committee papers and they were available to be read before the previous meeting.
Just as a point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, I would tend to think that someone who's got 20 or 30 dogs in their backyard, maybe, and they've been there for 3 or 4 years or whatever the case may be, there may be an issue where they should be in the pound. You know, I don't know. That's what I'm asking you about the companions, animals. It's not about reading the papers or anything. I know, and I'm happy for the director to take it on notice. He knows where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 5.4, quarterly budget review. Can I have moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any speakers? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Just a question for you to the director. On pages 68, 69, 71, 72, there's quite a large drop in the budgeted versus actual costs for stormwater drainage. I wanted to know, is that because of the delays to the Blackburn Swamp harvesting, or is this a separate issue that changes the figure so greatly?
Thank you for your question through the Mayor. The changes to the stormwater votes are generally around projects that are not proceeding in this financial year, so they're either seeking approval still, or they're seeking funding. So some of them are externally funded as well. So that's the our manager's best estimates of which projects will go ahead and which projects will be delayed into the next financial year. So stormwater harvesting would be one of those projects.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at the around about just under $1 million, and I noticed council did put $1,000 concern in that, because I'm thinking about adjusting the budget, because I don't believe in transgender storytelling. I don't have any problem with gays.
Point of order, that's not actually
Probably
on the
gays and all
agenda.
these, and families that are gays and things like that. But I want to ask the question is, where is that $125,000 being spent? Involved in that, and what's the complete agenda? We don't have that agenda as councillors. The complete agenda we do not have. I have not seen it. So I'm just asking for... It's not a council issue, it is a council issue. The money is in our bank. It's in our bank, so it's in there and it's in there. In 5.2, we were going to adjust the budget. So, you know, if you're not going to come forward with the information, I'll have a resolution of the next council to cancel Rainbow Festival. I don't want to see that. I want to make sure that the medical evidence is available, that we don't affect children. Because number one, we have stop-go pedals. We have stop-go people at the pedestrian crossings to protect children. We have go 40 for me outside schools.
Your question, please. You'll get an answer.
I'm going to get the... I'll ask the question. I want a complete breakdown of what the $125,000 is, what the actual agenda is for the day. Because if there's any storytelling in it, there'll be a resolution of this now to council to cancel it.
Thank you. Sit down. Sit down.
Councillor McDonald. Someone else to, when I get chipped by someone who's a chair, but it's not good enough for someone else. There's not double standards in this chamber.
Councillor McDonald. It was in the budget.
I'm sure the acting CEO has the gist of what my question is, and I would like it all.
Councillor McDonald.
I'd just like to make a comment that just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we debate whether we have the event or not.
Any other speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 5.5, Statement of Investments. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Whitten. Any speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question. On page 83, we have a little graph that we have every time. The Ausbond Bank Bill Index is the purple line on that graph. At every other meeting, including December 19 on page 309, it was there at 0.95% in a very straight line along the bottom. I've commented on it before being a useless indicator. Suddenly, it's way up there, including from June 2023 at 3.5 up to 4.5%. So what's happened? How did it change?
I'll take that on notice, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 5.7, Fees and Charges Amendments, Orange Regional Museum Touring Exhibition.
Move it.
Moved by
We missed
Councillor Mallard,
5.6.
seconded by Councillor Duffy.
Or did we-
6, we should.
Sorry, 5.6.
That's
Fees and
the wrong
amendments for Orange City Choices at Home maintenance lawn mowing
I'll
post-exhibition.
move that too.
I'll second that one too.
Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any speakers?
Discussions with the director of elderly people in their 90s who want to do some mowing around their house and they need assistance and they can't afford the massive charges that are occurring because of the cost of living and their exorbitant electricity prices and just everyday living. I know it's one person I spoke about, she hasn't received a visit yet, but I expect her to have a visit in the near future as regards to this. And I think it's a wonderful project for our council to come and give back to the community, that people that are in need.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.7, fees and charges amendments, Orange Regional Museum Tourism Exhibition post-exhibition. Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just don't think there's enough information in here. The proposed fee is $0 to $10,000. What are we approving? That's a big range. So there's nothing in there to indicate how you would determine. It just says be determined based on the scale of exhibition and the institution that's receiving the works. I just think it would be good to have a bit more information than that before we decide that somebody might get charged $10,000 and someone else might get charged $0.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this report obviously is the result of the public exhibition. So when we brought this to council previously to place it on exhibition, the range 0 to 10,000 is exactly what the report says. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult item to try to identify because what we're trying to do is recover costs if we tour an exhibition. So if we take one element of an exhibition and tour it, that might cost $1,000 in this instance. The next exhibition, it might be a $3,000 cost to travel it. The next one might be $100. The next one might be $5,000. So we asked for a range to give us that latitude to be able to charge out what it costs us and recover those costs for touring those exhibitions. So they're done in agreement with the other institutions that receive those exhibitions. We make those fees and costs clear to them at the time of the inquiry. So it's a cost recovery exercise. Alternatively, we would have to bring a report every time to council to seek and express grants to charge a certain fee and then update the fees and charges. It's just the clunkiness of how fees and charges are charged by council. So we've asked for a range. So that's the rationale behind it.
Okay, all right. I still think it's weird, but that's fine. Thank you.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.8.
Happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Duffy, move.
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Any speakers?
Yeah, I just want a bit of an idea of what actually is going to happen. I believe that yourself and Councillor Greenhalgh are going to go on a panel.
On a panel and meetings with codes about the sporting precinct.
The sporting precinct. And I do have concerns because a number of people have come to me as regards to the design and whether it meets certain standards. It could give us the design plans of what it is. And I'm talking
Our Sydney plays, you mean? Rabbitohs.
about.
Your microphone's not working.
Good, don't tell.
I can hear you.
They won't be St George plays coming.
You don't listen to what I say anyway, so flat.
So what are you asking, Councillor Duffy?
I'm asking that we provided with the details of the design plans for the main sporting stadium, because I want to know beforehand that it is correct, because if we have to make any adjustments at a later date, it will be extremely confident. Now, I know that what the size of a football ground is and all those type of things there, but I just want to make sure that it meets the requirement. I just don't want a yes and no. I just want to see that it applies design plan where it's got that, because we've had a lot of projects blow out severely, and we all know that. We had conservatorium, planetarium. We've got the sports precinct itself nearly tripled, whatever the case may be. But I don't want to see the same thing happen again if we have to start over again. The director's got an idea what I want.
Thank you. Noted. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. The acting, we'll go on to closed now. Can I have a move that we go on the closed? Seconder?
You need to do the other bits first. Read the stuff.
All right.
He's the chairman.
The acting chief executive will now advise the council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of the Orange City Council.
There's been no such submissions. Thank you.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2021, the opinion of the CEO, the following businesses of kind of referred to as Section 10A2 of the Act should be dealt with in a confidential session of closed to the press and the public. 6.1, tender, Lake Canobolas accessible boardwalk is classified confidential. Under the provision of Section 10A2C, information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person of whom council is conducting or propose to do conduct business. 6.2, minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting, 6th of December 2023, is classified confidential under the provision of Section 10A2F, matters affecting the security of council, councillors, council staff or council property. Can I have someone move and second that we go? Moved by Councillor Power, seconded by Councillor Floyd. All those in favour? Against? Carried.